When you're building something of this scale, this high end, you can't put it on the wrong lot. I have my own criteria, what I believe A+ dirt is. Some people may not agree with me. Number one and most important to me is...
We are here with Frank Dimaggio today. He's a top real estate agent in Arizona, owns the agency AZ, a top brokerage locally. He's also a builder, done over $600 million in development. And we're gonna be getting an inside look at a couple of his projects today. And we're gonna give you a sneak peek at a $30 million spec home he's building. That's gonna be one of the most expensive in Arizona history.
I believe he also owns the top Italian restaurant in Arizona, doesn't he?
Yep, Frank also owns Dimaggio. So if you're hungry and you love Italian food, it's the best place in Arizona to get a meal.
One of MDF Development's top projects. It's here at Paradise Valley Farms. It's not a spec, so we don't really have a number on it, but I think it'll speak for itself.
Oh my God.
Wow. One of the most important things when you're talking about development, whether it's investment or for an end user, is number one, the dirt. The dirt is the most important when you're doing projects of this scale. I think that's the most important thing that people should take away from this is you can't change the dirt. We can build anything anywhere. Matt Thomas is our architect. We think he's the best in the business. He draws these kind of traditional style with a modern twist houses. And when you're building something of this scale, of this high end, you can't put it on the wrong lot. And I think that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on at MDF. And just myself as whether an investor or if I'm building for somebody else. And that's why this relationship is so important. You know, I'm always looking for dirt. There's a lot of stuff that's out there all the time that's on the market and easy to find and you're battling against people, but then there's that stuff that's kind of off market. This is a prime example. I bought this property off market. This seller was in Europe, called him on the phone, told me he didn't want to sell the property. Stayed on him for probably 6 months. And he was like, you know what, I'm interested in selling it. Let's see if we can do something. And I was able to buy it right away. And then when I acquired it, the very first day I put it on the market, we had somebody come and acquire it from us. And that's because it was primo dirt, as you can see.
Yeah.
1.7 acres in one of the best, maybe the best street in the whole town. Depending on what type of developer you are, you've got kind of two avenues. For us at the time, we were acquiring property and then we were either going to build on spec or sell the property and then build. If you were going to buy from us, you did have to build with us, of course, kind of get us a baked-in client. You've got other developers out there who are just looking to flip the dirt or they're looking to partner with other builders and possibly building spec with them, bring in investors. But the one thing that I'll tell you is it all comes down to the dirt. You know, you can always find builders, you can always find investors. There's plenty of money out there. There's plenty of guys that want to build houses, but there's not a lot of dirt and there's not a lot of A+ dirt. I have my own criteria, what I believe A+ dirt is. Some people may not agree with me. Number one and most important to me is road noise. I think it is the one thing that no matter almost at any level that a buyer comes in, hears road noise and thinks, you know what, this isn't for me, whether they're buying 300,000 or 30 million. From there, big in Arizona is the exposure. I think Western exposure out the back is an issue. Some people don't. Some architects are able to put really big overhangs and kind of deal with that. If you've got a client that maybe is only here half the year, might not be as big a deal for them. But for me, I don't really like the Western exposure out the backyard.
Is that just because you don't like the house getting beat with sun all the time in your back?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the sun beating in from 2 to 6 o'clock when you're in the house and you're in probably the rooms that are going to get beat with sun.
Yeah.
I just think it makes for an unpleasurable living experience. You got to pull your blinds down. I don't know if you want to be living with your blinds down at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. It's all those little things, guys, that people don't think about when looking at a lot that differentiates the biggest developers in Arizona. When they look for those little things like Western exposure and not wanting that so there's not light pounding in. But I mean, that's what separates people that are at the bottom of the totem pole and the top of the totem pole is those little things.
Yeah, I think the other thing you got to look at is, of course, view. The view is going to be really important. If you can get a great view, that's going to add value to the property, of course. If you don't have, see, this is part of being in a construction site. If you don't have a great view, great landscaping is really important. The landscaping that you put around is going to be vital. And the other thing that really, when you're talking about that little bit of a separator, or really the big separator, is understanding the dirt, understanding the washes, understanding which washes can be moved, understanding the retention, understanding your easements, which ones are an issue, which ones aren't an issue, all the different kind of little facets of the lot itself. The slope of the lot can have a big impact, especially here in Paradise Valley. A lot of people are just buying dirt and they don't understand that you can only bring the dirt, you can only bring up so much fill. now in Paradise Valley.
Now, if you're watching this video and you're saying, what is an easement? What is a wash? What is Frank talking about? That's why you need to sign up for the free training we're doing this week, where we're going to show you exactly what it is he's talking about and how to understand these things so you can start wholesaling luxury properties. What's the difference between a good and a bad wholesaler?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. 95% of wholesalers are donkeys. And I tell them on the phone that they're donkeys. When you call me, be prepared for me to call you a donkey. Because this is what wholesalers do. Wholesalers will find somebody who gets on the phone after 50 phone calls of just being hung up on. That's like, you know what? Yes, I might be interested in possibly selling my property. And they get all fired up and they're all excited. And they're like, finally, I got a potential deal. And the property that they're looking at is worth $3 million. And the person who's on the other end of the phone who's saying, you know, maybe I'm selling, what do you want for it? I want 3.8. And they immediately are like, 3.8. Yes, you got it. You just want to get it under contract to see if they can come to a developer or somebody, you know, make a few bucks and flip it to somebody else. When they call me, I tell them they're a donkey. I tell them, look, as a wholesaler, your job is not to just roll over to the client and just listen to anything they say. You don't have a product. You're not selling sunglasses. You're not selling air conditioning units. You only have your time and your understanding of the market. They need to understand what the true value of the lot is. And obviously they don't need to steal it from some little old lady when she's got a $5 million lot and you buy it for $2 million. That's not the business. The business is you've got a lot, it's worth $3 million, and you say to them, you're gonna have 2 sides of commission, you're gonna have a long carry possibly, you know, you've got all these factors of people walking around on your lot that maybe you don't want to deal with. I can bypass a lot of that for you if you can get it to me for 2,850 or 2,9 or whatever that number might be, where it's not that big of a loss for them if they're paying 2 sides of commission and if they're sitting on the property and they're sitting on the cash. And that's the art of being a great wholesaler, is getting it for a little bit less, getting somebody like myself who sees it as worth $3 million. I can pay 2,975. The wholesaler can make some money. I'm getting it a little bit under market, and everybody wins in the deal. Where you're a donkey is when you don't know how much the lot is. You're listening to whatever the person on the other side of the phone is telling you. You're putting them under contract for too high. You're going out there and trying to pitch it, and then you're coming to them on the last day and you're saying, oh, you know what? I think I got to blow out of the deal. And then they're thinking, okay, I don't want to deal with wholesalers. These guys are over-promising me. They're telling me that my lot is worth this much money when it's really not. And it gives a black eye to the industry, and you're wasting my time. Because you're calling me on the phone and you're saying, hey, I got a great opportunity for you. Can I get 10 minutes? Can I get 5 minutes? Sure, I want to give these guys some time. I want to do deals. And then they tell me about the lot that's worth 3.8 or 3.5 or 3.6, and then I start laying into it. And I will lay into you. There's some people who are watching this thing who are like, I've called that guy. And he has laid into me.
Has a wholesaler ever done something or said something to you that have made you completely just blackball them, where you'll never do business with them ever again?
Yeah, I would say,
Text me every week.
I would say the one thing that would pretty much get me to not want to work with you again is if you tell me you've got a deal under contract and you don't have it under contract. You know, you're coming to me and you're saying, hey, I've got it under contract. I can flip it to you at 3.1. You know, are you interested? And then I go take all this time to go do due diligence and put the money together and do everything I need to do. And then I come back to you and I say, okay, we're good at 3.1. Let's move forward. Let's do the deal. And then they're like, okay, I don't really have it under contract. And then I'm like, look, you're wasting my time. I'm not going to deal with you.
Frank, what if I call you and I talk to somebody and they're good to go at 3 million? Right? They're ready to sign, but I don't have it under contract yet. And I call you and I say, Frank, I don't have this under contract yet, but would you take a look and tell me where you'd be on it?
I'd be fine with that if you disclose to me that you don't have it under contract, because I'm probably not going to do the same level of due diligence as you tell me you do have it under contract. Because I might be going to an investor and saying, hey, I need $2 million from you. I got this great deal. They're going to do their own due diligence. They're allocating to me. Then I go back to them and say, I don't have the deal. Now I look back bad with my investor. You've wasted my time. That's pretty much where I'm probably not going to deal with you again. But if you disclose to me, then I could do a real quick underwriting on it. I could pretty much tell you where I would be on it, you know, within $100,000 or so, and give you a chance to go get it. We do this more traditional style. We think it's more timeless. And you know, it was cool literally 100 years ago. It's cool today, and it'll probably be cool in 100 more years. A lot of people that I'm competing with, they like to do what's absolutely trendy. That's what's the coolest in that moment of time. And you know, this is somebody's house. We look at it as it could be passed on generation to generation, and that's the way that we want to build. You know, I don't see some of these houses getting passed on generation to generation.
Do you think that attitude is why you're constantly breaking price per square foot records in the valley?
Yeah, I think when you get to the ultra luxury level, that a lot of the buyers are really educated. They typically have decent agents, and they understand the difference between kind of these stucco boxes, the modern, inexpensive. They put a little bit of steel and glass in it, but that's just a small tick up from what you're seeing in here and from what you're seeing at this level. And I think they really understand what quality is, and they're willing to pay for it. Look, the cost of building something like this is considerably more than the stucco boxes and the more modern stuff. It just is, and they know that, so that's why they're willing to pay as well.
Gotcha. How did you get to the point where you're able to make these stylistic decisions that are going to appeal to the ultra luxury, not the person who's buying the $3-4 million stucco box, but the people who are really in this category of its own?
There's going to be people at home who are going to hear that question and they're going to say, "Well, I don't have all these, secrets that Frank's got. How am I going to be able to do this?" It's not. What it is it's hiring the very best people in each particular category and letting them do what they do best and just be the developer. So I don't talk to the architect and say, "Hey, we should have a bigger pitch roof." That's not my jam. The architect's been doing it for 20 years. They're the best in the business. That's why I'm paying them a boatload of money to draw the house. Draw the house. I'll give you the basics of the amenities I want in there, the bedroom count, my wish list of garages. Same with the interior designers. Same with the landscape architects. Same with the pool builders. Go out and get the very best that you can, the best you can afford, and let them do what they do best. Your responsibility is to put the team together. You're the general manager. You don't need to be the Michael Jordan to be looked at as the best developer. The best developer puts the best team on the field and wins championships.
Yeah.
I look at myself as the preeminent developer because I think I pick the best people and put them together, but I don't have some sort of insight as to why they coffer ceiling in here or why I wouldn't do it in another room. Somebody else is drawing that, somebody else is picking that. I think my talent is evaluating other people's talent and bringing them together and giving them the resources and putting them on the right lot.
Yeah.
Do you have a process that you use that allows you to consistently find these A players?
The way that I typically go about it is I go see projects that I think are unbelievable and then try to figure out who those team members are. And sometimes I have to kind of piece them together. Like if I'm saying I love these 5 pools and it's this 3 of this 5 are the same person, that's probably going to be my go-to person. It's a lot of my taste, but like I said, my taste I think is timeless. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, and I think it's the best chance of recession-proof. Like if you get a little bit of a downturn in the market, I think these types of properties will always do well. I think the trendier ones where you got 20 of the same ones going up could suffer.
Yeah.
Boom.
The other thing that I think is important for us or our strategy is we want to be different. Like I think most people that are getting into the business go, "What's everybody else doing? Let's just do what they do." That's not what we do. I always tell clients who are investors or clients who are considering working with me, they always go, "Okay, give me that one last piece that's going to separate you from somebody else." And I say, "Okay, here's the test. I'm going to give you a street in town, maybe the best street or one of the best streets. Drive down the street and just pick the best house. By far the one that jumps out at you. And if one doesn't, then just say it.
Yeah.
And come back with an address." And if they're like, "This one," and I'm like, "That's the one we did,"
Yeah.
it speaks for itself.
That is some actual fucking top dog shit right there. That's so sick.
I said I kind of like these individual garages, kind of like it's like putting an art piece on display for each of your vehicles. It's all framed in beautifully, and instead of just having a bunch of open space where you try to bring your cars in, each car has a designated stall, and it just is more visually appealing, I think.
I'll tell you what, fun fact, come look at this. When I first moved into my dream house, I was like on top of the world and I'm driving my Ferrari into the house the first time. I had just taken an Instagram story talking about how I always used to drive by this neighborhood and look up and think one day I'm gonna live there, and I finally did it. I'm pulling my Ferrari into one of these individual stalls, not thinking, and I sideswiped the entire side of my car on the edge of one of these garage stalls. And from that day, I got really humbled. First of all, I was like, "Ooh, maybe I'm not too big for my britches." And I also realized that it's never good to Instagram story and drive.
What is this?
Theory.
Oh my god.
Yeah, theory there.
More garages for the
Yeah.
guest house?
Yeah.
Oh. So that is all designated to just his car collection.
Yeah.
Like this detail on the walls is so much more expensive.
Oh,
Yeah.
But it looks so good. I mean,
Oh yeah.
there can't be many neighborhoods in Paradise Valley that have this much mature landscaping.
No. I say it's the best street in the whole valley. All the restaurants, all the gyms, pretty much work, depending on where you work.
And there's just nowhere else that has this many large trees.
No.
I mean, it's just every street is just lined with them.
Also,
I mean, it
seems-
feels a lot like parts of Arcadia, but without the power lines and bigger
Yeah.
lots.
Yeah.
Which is why I say it's like the best of all worlds.
Yeah. We are headed to a spec house that Frank is about to start construction on. I don't believe there's ever been another spec in Arizona built to this level. It's pre-listed right now during construction or pre-construction at $30 million. So a lot of developers like to stay in the $15 to $20 million range for the ultra high-end stuff. But there's actually a lot of buyers out there for 30, 40, $50 million. It takes some big cojones to do a deal like that, but that is what Frank has. So we're going to be going to check out acre and a half property that he bought for, I believe, around $5 million, and is going to be putting a $30 million product on it. Here it is.
The water.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We're here today at 5719 East Indian Bend, which most people are calling the best lot in Paradise Valley. Frank Dimaggio, can you tell us about what's going to be coming up here?
Yeah, so we're going to be doing 14,800 square feet. It's going to be a 2-level property. We'll have a 14-car garage. We'll have 2 pools. Matt Thomas was the architect. Jeff Berghoff did the landscape. And you know, at the end of the day, it's going to be the preeminent spec ever done in Paradise Valley.
Can you talk about the grade of the lot and how that affects what you were able to do with it?
Yeah, so with this particular lot, because we've got this slope to it, we did a 2-story. So we'll have 8,500 square feet on the main, and then you'll go down to the 2nd story. We'll have extra garages and kind of like all the amenities. You'll have got a game room, a movie room, a bar, wellness, all downstairs.
Is this hillside property?
No, this is
No.
not Hillside. The
Okay.
reason that this is probably what some people would say the best lot in all of Paradise Valley is it's obvious that you have maybe the best view, but you don't have the hillside ordinances here.
Yeah, okay.
And you have the lot size.
Yes, you've got an extra large lot with the big view and no hillside ordinances.
So to find a lot that almost is a little bit hillside but not hillside ordinance is like a gold mine, because you don't have to deal with all the hillside and
yeah,
ordinances. and
it's
stuff.
practically impossible. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's only a few that I've ever seen, and this is one of them. That's what's made it so valuable, so sought after.
Yeah.
So, for someone who doesn't know, what is hillside?
You know, a hillside lot has a certain grade to it, and if it's got that grade, then it falls within what's considered the hillside ordinances of Paradise Valley. And if you build there, you're going to have to go through a separate process where it's approved by a separate committee rather than just the town of Paradise Valley. It extends your build time. It does limit you on some things you can do, and I generally don't build on the hillside.
Gotcha. So, fun fact, actually, the way that me and Matthew actually really got into business together was I had a lot that I thought we were going to make a $400,000 assignment fee on until a developer came and looked at it and started to tell me about hillside ordinance. And I learned that basically because of that, our lot was not worth anywhere near what we thought it was. And I went from thinking I was going to make $400,000 to canceling a contract. So as we were driving through, there's actually this is one of 3 new builds coming up right here in Woodard.
Yep.
Is that something that was helpful to you? Maybe was it planned, or how does?
At the end of the day, I'm picking what I believe to be the best lots. I'm not really concerning
Independent of-
myself with what other developers are doing. You know, I have my model that works. We've been ultra successful because we follow our model. It's more likely that people see where we go and then they buy properties around us
Gotcha.
than the other way around.
Makes sense.
How do you differentiate yourself from like other builders and stuff? I know a lot of people just do the stucco boxes, but there's different signs. There's Bink Development. There's someone else right next door. How do you differentiate yourself from different people in the space like that?
You know, I think a lot of people concern themselves about what other people are doing, and that's probably their biggest downfall. I think if you want to be successful, no matter what it is you're doing, you need to be laser focused on what you think is different about yourself to the customer, not your competitors.
Yeah.
And I think that we offer ultra high quality. We care about our customers, and we're putting them on the best piece of dirt with the best team. That's what we focus on, and we're not too concerned with other people are doing. It's the same thing that you should be doing in wholesaling. Like, rather than looking at what other people are doing and saying, oh, this guy makes 500 phone calls a day, and this person's calling on luxury, and this person's calling on this and that. It should be, look, this is what I think I would do well, and this is how I service my developers
Yeah.
or my investors who are looking to buy property. Let me see what I can do best for them and not really concern myself with the other wholesalers are doing.
Yeah. What kind of premium in terms of like dollar amount does a view like this get you? I'm sure there's a premium on the dirt itself and then a premium on the back end, but having, I mean, front to back views of Camelback 180 degrees out your backyard, what kind of premium does that give a buyer on the back end?
You know, I don't think there's a certain percentage or a dollar amount. I think it just comes down to people love a view. And
Yeah.
typically what makes this lot so special is when you're getting a view and you're getting an elevated view like this, normally you're getting no lot. You're just getting the house itself, and you're probably somewhere on a hillside where you got very little land, you've got very little lawn, you've got very little amenities. You know, having this kind of a view, and we're gonna have 2 pools, a pickleball court, and grass all over the place, exceptionally rare. Maybe one of the only ones.
A common misconception a lot of people have is that they're going to get a deal locked up right away. That doesn't always happen in the luxury space. Sometimes in traditional, it happens like that. While it does still happen in luxury occasionally, sometimes you're going to lock up a property within the first week of talking to a homeowner. But other times, someone's not ready to sell yet, and it's a big asset that they have. And it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 months, up to a year sometimes of follow-up. But follow-up is everything in the game. So we wanted to talk to Frank about what did the follow-up process look like? How did you actually acquire this lot? I know it took over a year for you.
I'm doing deals. I don't have time for your questions.
And that's a wrap, guys. You said this deal took like a year to lock up. How do you lock up something that's like a primo deal in Paradise Valley history? Like, what does that process look like, and how did they pick you, working with you?
It was considerably longer than a year, actually. Okay. And follow up and persistence is the key when you're talking about, you know, stuff at this level. Originally, the person who had bought this lot and owned this lot had actually called us about potentially building for them. Okay. So they had come to us and said, you know, we may be interested in building with you. Let's talk to you a little bit. Let's walk the lot a little. And I said, okay. That was kind of how I made my introduction. And then when I was following up and asking, like, how do you want to go through the process? Do you want to talk a little bit more? Do you want to talk about paperwork and all that kind of stuff? He was like, you know, we're going to put it on pause for a little bit. I kept following up. And then at one point he said, you know, we've decided we're not going to build on the lot. We're going to move somewhere else. And he's like, I'm just going to kind of hang on to it. I continued to follow up, and I was like, you know, it's maybe the best lot in the whole town. Do you really just want to sit on it? Like, would you be interested? I did sell the lot next door. That was the, at the time, most expensive lot in the history of Arizona, price per square foot, and probably still is. That lot sold for $7 million for just that little over one acre parcel.
This one right here, right next door?
Directly next door.
Wow.
So I knew the value of the area obviously really well. And I was like, look, I had done that deal. You know, let me see if I can move this one for you. He had informed me that his best friend was a real estate agent and he was not going to list with anybody but them. But, you know, I just kind of continued to follow up, literally probably at least 2 years. And then eventually he gave the listing to his friend. It went on the market at a really high number, and the market had softened since that deal. And I had just kind of stayed up with him. And I said, you know, if we get to a certain number, I'd be interested in buying it myself. And we were able to kind of get to that number.
Okay.
Frank, can you tell me, when you say that you've just been following up, what does a follow-up look like for you? Are you calling them saying, hey, I'm just following up, has anything changed? Or what does that actual touch point with the client look like?
Yeah, I call them every day at 6 a.m. and I just hammer the shit out of them. Of course not. No, like I said, when you get to a certain level, follow-up is different. You know, like, you want to see yourself as an asset. You want to see yourself as a consultant. That's how I see myself. I don't see myself as a bothersome to them. So if I'm following up with them, I'm probably giving them information. I'm probably reaching out to them and saying, hey, just so you're aware, the lot down the street's coming on the market. I heard it's going to be at like 5.5. That probably puts you around here. Just kind of want to give you an update, you know, where you at, as opposed to just like, hey, do you want to, and just following up, you know, it's like
always, you have something of value.
Always. I mean, like I said, it's just as you progress in your career and as you progress on the phone and in person and doing development deals, yes, you need to start somewhere. And yes, you might start off with just, hey, I'm following up. But eventually you'll realize that if you create value, people will take your calls. People will be happy to hear from you if you're giving them information, especially if they have an asset in Paradise Valley. They're going to want to know what the other deals are around them. They're going to want to know if something closed off market. They're going to want to know if something's coming on the market. What's the price? What are your thoughts? All that kind of stuff. So that's generally when I follow up, not just put a date on my calendar.
What does a construction loan look like on something like this? On a deal that is going to be a $30 million exit on the back end, I mean, how much money are you having to raise for a project like this? And how does a construction loan work at this level?
Yeah,
It's probably one of the biggest ones in Arizona history now.
Yeah, I think this was the biggest loan ever for a spec in Arizona history. That's what the lender at least told me, but
Wow.
who knows? He might be looking for clickbait. But it depends on how much cash you have. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, it depends on how much cash you want to bring to the table, whether you own the dirt outright. I generally like to buy the dirt outright, whether it's myself or me and a partner. I just want to own the dirt, and then usually I'll subordinate the dirt to get a loan.
Yeah.
But as far as how much, I mean, that's a question of budgeting. That's a question of, what type of house you want to put on it and the amenities you're going to put in at the finish level.
Yeah.
So there's really no formula or not a good answer I can give you. You've got houses that are being built at, one price per square foot, and the next one right next door might be $100 or $200 more.
Yeah, and as you get up into these price points of like $30 million plus, I know your buyer pool is smaller. So what do you look for in building something like this that's going to attract a buyer that's going to spend $30 million?
And I just want to make a very clear point. It's 30 million pre-construction. By
Yeah.
the time we get it done, it will definitely be more.
Okay.
But what are they looking for? They want everything. They
Yeah.
want a view. They want extreme high quality construction, great design. They want some sort of wow factor, and they want to make sure that every single thing that they would want in their house, whether it be gym, wellness, oversized closets. This one has 2 kitchens, so it has a normal kitchen. It has a kitchen for just your chef. They want to make sure that they've got every single detail checked for whatever their needs are. Somebody buying at that level.
So you have to think it's like a custom build, more so than just a spec, because you have to think what's someone going to want on the back end and try and put in all those pieces to it.
You've got to be dealing with people who are at this price point. You got to be dealing with people who are living this lifestyle to understand what their wants and needs are. And the biggest advantage that I have over pretty much everybody in the game is I'm a real estate agent and I'm a developer. As a real estate agent, the clients are giving me the answers to the test. They're
Yeah.
pretty much saying, hey, look, I want this, I want that. And when you deal with 10, 15, 20 people who could buy a 30, 40, $50 million house, and across the board, they're almost all universally telling you the same thing, then when I put my developer hat on, I'm building specifically to their needs and wants.
Who is the type of person, without obviously getting into specifics, who are buying $30 million houses? Are these all Fortune 500 CEOs? Are they, superstars? Like, what is the demographic of person that is your clientele for a project like this?
Yeah, I can tell you that as far as their needs and wants, there's probably some uniformity there. It's very rare that somebody wouldn't want wellness or wouldn't want a gym or wouldn't want a theater or wouldn't want at least 5, 6, or 7 bedrooms. All that kind of stuff is pretty standard. As far as who they are, it's all over the map. A house like this could sell to, a professional athlete. It could sell to a Fortune 500 CEO. The people that buy these houses, generally, I have to do a little bit of due diligence on them to make sure that they're qualified to do a deal of this level before I put too much time and effort into them. And it's amazing as to what they do. Typically, they do something exceptionally boring. They're recycling cardboard, and they're making $28 million a year, and you have no idea who they are. And they're typically not driving the fanciest cars or the newest cars or anything like that. And they got enough money to buy the whole street. So
Yeah.
I would never think to myself like, oh, I know who my buyer is going to be. Every time I've ever thought that, I've always been thrown for a loop as to who actually buys the house.
I feel like
Alright.
that's something I've heard a lot. It's some crazy thing. Like you said, recycling cardboard. They're building the screws that go into washing machines.
Well, I just sold the other property on Kiva right next to the one you and I walked. And the guy who bought it, who's going to be building a spec on it, he owns an electrical company. He had a small electrical company, and then he just struck some deals with some of the the microchip plants that are
Data
being
centers,
built
yeah.
up north, and he's doing a bunch of the high voltage electrical for it. And now he has the money to build a spec house in PV.
Never judge somebody by what they wear or what they drive, and when they pull up, trust me, typically the fancier it is, the more they're leveraged.
Yeah.
I was at the point where I was that guy. I had, the Ferrari, the Rolls Royce, all kinds of stuff. And I realized the most embarrassing thing is when I'm with people that make substantially, exponentially more money than I do, and I'm the one with the nicest shit.
I think when you get to a certain level, you don't have to impress anybody anymore. You're really just looking for function and what you like. And I think that's the ultimate level of success, is when you're really just buying the things that you like. And it really doesn't matter the price point. Sometimes they are extremely expensive. There's things in my life that I buy that I'm like, yes, they're wildly expensive. Like I absolutely will not sit in a coach class seat. I just feel like if you get to a certain level of success, if I'm going to make an effort to travel somewhere, no matter how short or long of a distance it is, I want to sit in first class. Like I think it's just a mindset. I think it's a comfort. I think it's just something that I've earned. And I typically don't waver on that at all, even if it's just to Las Vegas or something like that. On the flip side, I don't wear a watch. I don't wear any jewelry. You know, I drive a pickup truck, and those things are just not that important to me. Like, I'm not really interested in trying to show off any of my wealth with that. I'd rather take that money and invest it into real estate deals and do a big deal and have everybody talk about it. That would make me feel better, and that would make me feel like more accomplished than having a bunch of fancy jewelry or, you know, a bunch of cars, something like that.
All right, guys, that wraps it up for the day that we got to spend with Frank. Guys, if you want to be a part of one of these deals, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, let me preface it by saying, if you're not a donkey and you've got a good deal in Paradise Valley, especially an ultra luxury deal, I'm always looking for deals. I'm always buying. You know, as long as it's the right deal at the right number, I've got the cash. Let's do a deal. You know, I'm a real estate agent, so my information's out there. If you can find a great deal, you should be able to find me. Reach out to me and let me know. But understand, if it's not a good deal, I'm going to call you out.
Perfect.